Hello, this is Ashee from Crafting with Ashee, and welcome to this card making paper crafting tutorial. I hope this finds you well. So today we're going to be making this lovely daisy card. As you can see here, it's lovely and bright and happy and sunny, and this features the Cheerful Daisies stamp and die set from Stampin' Up, as well as the Floral Delight Designer Series paper. So I love how this started out. I think it's so bright and cheerful, so I thought we'd make another one together. So let's start. So here on my original I've used Daffodil Delight and Old Olive. On this one we're going to use Old Olive as my card base, and we're also going to use Old Olive to mat our designer series paper. Now I've got a piece here of basic white cardstock that measures 14.35 centimeters by 10. And we're going to just put some glue on this, and we're going to put this inside our card for the insert. So let's just stick that down there, making sure it's centered, have an even border around it. Lovely. Okay, so I have another piece here of basic white, same size as the insert, and I've put this through the Timber 3D embossing folder. And a 3D embossing folder is really nice as it gives a really deep emboss, so you get a lot of texture on your card, and this is a great way of adding interest to your background without making it look too busy or too overwhelming. So I'm just going to stick that down on the front, and I always use wet glue for this because I think it just sticks better. For me it does. Glue is a very personal choice, and I do use wet glue quite a lot nowadays. I've changed. I used to use a lot of tape runner, but I've moved across to rather preferring Tombow. So now I have a piece here of the Floral Delight Designer Series paper, and this measures 8 centimeters by 10. I'm going to mat this onto a piece of Old Olive that's slightly bigger. Now all the measurements, the supplies, as I just said, measurements, will be on the blog post, and you can find the link to that in the description box below, so do check that out. Okay, so now we're going to move on to just getting some foam adhesive to stick down our little piece of designer series paper, and this is some from my stash. The Stampin' Up does sell foam adhesive, and it's great because it is double-sided. This is only sticky on one side, which is a real pain, so I have to put sticky down on my cardstock and then stick it to that and then take the backings off, so it's a bit of a nuisance. But I didn't have any of my Stampin' Up foam adhesive by my filming desk, because as you know I film in my spare room upstairs, not in my craft room, as my craft room is so small that there just isn't space for me to keep my filming set up, and I just can't bear having to take everything down every time and then put it all back up again to film 2 or 3 times a week. So I film in the spare bedroom, and I don't always have all my stuff there with me. But whatever foam adhesive you have, you could use dimensionals as well, or the edges. Edges will work perfectly for this. You don't have to pop it up if you don't want to, but I just wanted to have that little bit of extra interest in our card. Okay, so let's take the backings off, well, the backing off that. This is the one beauty of foam adhesive sheet, it's just one easy backing to take off. And now I'm going to center this top to bottom, but sort of more over to the right than the left, as you can see here. And once I'm happy with that, there we go. I'm going to stick that down. Lovely jubbly. Okay, so let's move on now. And I've got my silicone mat here, so we're going to put together our focal images, which are these daisies here. And these were cut out, as I said, using the Cheerful Daisies dies. And you can see here, these are the dies here. Sorry about the glare. And I cut out the base layer, and then I also cut out the layering piece as well. I didn't use the foliage in this set, though I will use, because I'm going to use a punch to punch out some foliage. Now I'm just going to use my scissors here on this big flower just to separate everything. So I'm going to take off the leaves here. I'm not actually going to use those on this card. And then I'm just going to separate the petals here. You can just see, just slightly snip them. There we go. And if there's any pieces here where I feel there's any bit sticking out, I'll just There we go, snip that off. And the same here as well, where I can see a piece that looks out of place. There we go. Now we're just going to layer these with our base pieces, and this can take a little bit of time. So all I'm going to do here is first is get rid of any bits that are still in the die that shouldn't be there. Now we're going to just lay this piece around. I'm just going to take my time going round and round and round until I find the orientation that it's meant to be in. Sometimes it can feel like you're just going round and round and round and never find it. But you just got to take your time, and then I'm going to open it up like a book so that I keep it in that orientation and I don't lose it. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here in the center of my flower, so then it'll just stick down there in the center. And then if I want, I can add a little bit of glue late afterward just to make sure it's properly tacked down. But I don't want both layers to be totally tacked down. I want there to be a little bit of fluffiness there as well. So you can see here where I feel it needs it. I'm just going to go back in and add a little bit more glue. And putting the second layer down seems silly, but this actually gives some really added texture, because the second layering piece of the die actually has quite a bit of texture on it, and it's just very tonal. You could do this in a different colour. I think this would look lovely if you did it in white and then a very light yellow like Lemon Lolly. That would also look really pretty, but I've just kept everything white here. And then we're just going to do this last little piece here. This one is really easy to line up. There we go, all done and dusted. So let's set that aside there to dry. And now I'm going to bring in here the bow punch. I'm going to punch out a few pieces of foliage from this scrap piece of old olive cardstock. And I try to use up all my scraps, as you can see here. I think I'm going to make even more of an effort. I do try and use as much as I can, but I'm trying to make more of an effort now as cardstock prices increase, to really use up what you have before you buy new. Alright then, so now we're going to stick down our daisies. So I'm going to use my wet glue again, and I'm using here some reverse tweezers, and this helps me just layer these easily the way I want them without hopefully getting my fingers too stuck in the glue. As you know, I hate having glue on my fingers, absolutely can't stand it, but it seems to happen every time I play about with my paper crafting. I can't help it. Alright, now I've just remembered I wanted to colour the centre of each of my daisies with my yellow, so I'm just going in now with my little sponge dauber and just adding a little bit of yellow, and the yellow here I've used is Daffodil Delight, and I think that really does just bring everything to life. And you can see here, this is how I store my sponge daubers, just in that little tray I got online. Now I'm going to take some old olive as well and another sponge dauber, and I'm just going to add a little bit of colour again to my punched pieces. Again, you don't have to do this, but that just means the colour looks a little bit less flat and a little bit more interesting. And since I have everything to hand, why not? Okay, so let's stick all of this down and get it stuck down. So I should say, if you're enjoying this video, I'd be grateful if you would give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really makes things so much easier, makes my videos so much more visible, and it is really much appreciated. So now I'm just going to play about with my foliage here, and I'm just going to stick it down. I'm just putting a little bit of glue along the stem so everything sort of stays quite fluffy and manageable. Sometimes my glue fights me. I don't know why it does that, or why it doesn't like me, why it has to do that, but it does. Do you sometimes have issues with your glue? I certainly do. However hard I try, I seem to have issues with it. Don't ask me why. There we go again. You can see, shaking that blooming glue to get it out. Okay, and here you can see I've just torn the top half of this piece of foliage, and I'm just going to use half of it. And that's another thing, don't be afraid to cut your die cuts in half or to tear pieces off, so that the die cuts work for you and give you a composition that you are happy with. And that's exactly what I'm doing here, where I'm just tearing off this one little leaf, and I'm just going to stick it in there, and then I'm just going to put one other one here on the left just to sort of balance everything out. There we go. What do you think? I hope you like it too. So all we've got left to do after this is our stamping. And as you'll see, the stamp set is the matching one, the Cheerful Daisies. So we're going to be stamping that just on a scrap piece of basic white cardstock. And we're going to be using some Old Olive ink. And I'm just going to use my grid paper here to line up my sentiment so it's nice and straight, and then I'm going to pick it up with my block, Old Olive ink, and I think I've re-inked this ink recently, so we should get a nice deep impression. Yeah, there we go, beautiful. Wishing you the brightest birthday. Isn't that sweet? Now I'm just going to use my trimmer to cut this out. You could use a die, whatever floats your boat. As you know, I'm very partial just to cutting it out myself using my trimmer, just eyeballing it and not measuring it. Find it very freeing, very easy to do, and much quicker than faffing with a die, personally. Now I'm just going to run the edges of this piece through my Old Olive ink pad, and this will just mean the edges will pick up some ink, and this will just help us to pop from the rest of the card. There you go. So that's all that's left now is some finishing touches, and I've got here the faux glass dots, and I'm just going to sprinkle a few here and there throughout the card. So I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial featuring the Cheerful Daisies bundle from Stampin' Up. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought, and remember, you can find all the information on the blog post, which is listed in a link below. Until next time, enjoy being creative. Bye.